Hello again, David Hosey from Hosey Consulting and Training. Today we're going over the B&T TP-9, more later version with the better safety. And just PDWs in general, the small little things you can carry in a little bag and go in and about, and pretty much a good part of your everyday life. With that, what we're looking at, is this a useful tool? What are its strengths and weaknesses? We're going to go over the PDW concept in general and the TP-9 specifically. And you know me, my normal things, we will do up close muzzle contact stuff. We will go back yonder to a couple hundred yards. It's not going to be a video where you're justifying my $4,000 and $5,000 gun. It's cool, it looks like great on the social media, everything else. This is a tool for serious use, what it does well, what it does wrong, its shortcomings. I'll show you how you can induce malfunctions on this thing. I don't have a quite great solution to yet, but mostly it's fairly strong. But is this a worthwhile tool for a prepared citizen? That's what we're going to explore. So, just rather than a gun in a bag, the Swiss, God bless their souls, are a systematic people. So, it has its own custom-made suppressor. If you just want to be, well, less noisy and more polite. And you know, just noise pollution, because pollution is a thing. Or even, not even leaving your brass behind. Nice and tidy with that. So all you're really leaving is 9mm rounds in your target. So it can actually be a really quiet system. Its trigger's a little heavy, but with practice you can work at a fair speed. I mean, maybe a fraction of a second slower on other things. You can see here. My double tap's a little off, but if I work up to speed, I can get kind of a rhythm going. It's still a little slower, but it's a fast system. We'll talk more about the suppressor, the trigger, even this little brass catcher later on as we explore this system. So, Burger and Thrummett, or just B&T as I like to call themselves these days, TP-9. This is a semi-auto version of the MP-9, which this is the third iteration of it. And since it has the thumb safety here rather than the cross bolt, there was an earlier version made by Steyr back in the 80s. What this is designed to be, well, is a machine pistol in military and law enforcement use, in civilian cell use, semi-automatic personal defense weapon. And what that is to be something a little bit bigger than even your large duty pistol. They give you a bit more stability for more rapid fire and longer range. It does get very small. We'll talk about small size comparison here. This whole thing is less than a foot. It's also, base gun is like 3¼ pounds. As everything here, this is like 4¼ when I put a suppressor on it. It's still under 5½ pounds. So it gets really lightweight for what it is compared to a lot of its competition. But it is still considerably bigger even than this large duty-sized handgun. So its philosophy of use is be something just a touch bigger than a handgun, and when you can't carry an AR or a full-size long gun, and you just need a little bit more than a handgun. That's going to be the big comparison to this. Is your M4, AR-15, AK, crank, even MP5 going to be better than this? Yes. Are they going to be as small as this? What better at what? This is very good at being small and concealable and lightweight. This whole bag with a suppressor in it, loaded magazines, is less weight than an unloaded AR-15 and much smaller and easier to carry. You can see the entry stuff where I was walking around town with this and carry this. You can go about your everyday life with this anywhere you can wear, you know, your satchel, purse for the ladies or whatever out there, this can be carried with you and brought into a lot of environments that AR-15 would really stand out, unless you know you're Israel. So, tip to butt, what is it and what it does? First thing, it is 9mm. It takes 20, 30, 25, or 15 flush fit round magazines. I've been using the 20s for starting magazine, and then 30 rounders when I get into fighting. It fits real easy in there. They're transparent. These are rather expensive at $60. There are some complaints of them getting broken on fully loaded magazines dropping, and in fact make a dedicated little mag bumper for this. Starting at the muzzle here, it is not the muzzle of the barrel. The barrel is inside. This is a muzzle device that allows the suppressor to fit on. There's a rotary barrel and bolt in here. So the bolt goes back and kind of in a telescoping fashion with the barrel rotating inside of it. I'm not going to break it fully down today. It's a bit more involved than, say, taking an AR-15 apart or an AK, but not horrible. It is a little tight-fitting, Swiss workmanship. This is a Swiss-made gun. I thought some components made in the U.S. with this is the U.S. model. Moving on back, vertical foregrip. This added on when I SBR'd it. It came off with a pistol without this being attached. Real quick note on this, there's a touch wiggle in this, and a small little space in here, which is most of this, the craftsmanship and fitment on this is really nice, but this is not. I've Loctited this and it still has a slight wiggle. It's still secure, it won't come off, but that's a minor irritation for a couple $1,000 base gun. And when you add the SBR conversion, the vertical foregrip, and the buttstock, we're talking about $2,300. Add in all the accessories and the suppressor, we're pushing $4,000. Going on back, we have ambi safety, a bolt release right here, which is more like a pistol. Magazine release right here. It is ambidextrous. The bolt release is only right-handed, and it's where you would find it normally on a handgun. Instead of a side charging handle, this is a very slick gun. It is an AR style like one. It is plastic, but it seems very well made. Or just solid. And while plastic, it has a degree of solidness to it. Even though it's got a little wonk in it, you can see there. It's not a problem. There are emergency backup iron sights on it. A folding stock, which folds really nice and tight. Has a detent in it. Bonus is when stock's folded, it works as a vertical foregrip still there, so you can push out with a sling if you wanted to. Button to release it is right here, but when it's clicked in here, there's a little click on the side of the foregrip. Goes back, locks, very solid lock up until you push the button to release. Very small attachment point for a single point sling in here. This looks flimsy, but it's really solid. I wouldn't want to say butt stroke with anybody with it, or do the old school dropping into position with it, like I was taught in basic with an M16A2 when dropping into the prone position. But otherwise, it feels pretty good and solid, and I don't have any real worries about that construction of it. The whole fitment of parts, how everything works on this, just seems quality and easy to use. So, coming up to the trigger, it has a trigger with a trigger safety like you find on a Glock or similar striker-fired pistols. That it is a hammer-fired gun. The problem with this is that again, clear gun. So let's do it this way. Creep, kind of going on back. Heavy, super heavy. I think the safety's on heavy. Then it breaks. Working the reset, long. It's a straight back, but it's creep, heavy, like 10 pounds heavy. What this is B&T talks about it, is this is the civilian derivative of the MP9, which has a progressive trigger, which means you can do single shots and then hold all the way back for full auto. And they haven't modified this for semi-automatic, except that it's semi-automatic. There's no, the series modified so it won't go full auto, and you get that really heavy trigger. That's the biggest problem with this. I'm not going to say it's a deal breaker, but you have to work with that trigger. It will slow down your rate of fire, and the gun holds stable enough. It doesn't screw up accurate fire too much, but you'll certainly notice it, and it's something you really have to train to. So accessories on this, the single point sling here is, it's okay, but it's not great for a single point sling. And has a quick on attachment with this little clip here, HK style, and just a piece of pretty much 550 cord holding it. I have added an aimpoint T2 and a larger riser. I could do this a little lower, but I was working for passive aiming with night vision for this. I have a Surefire mini scout light on here. You know, it's kind of rotated a little up. I've had it down at the sides or other places with tape switches, but this keeps it nice and slick, front on profile inside the bag. Also, I can do it ambidextrous with both hands reaching it, but I have to change my grip slightly. This is purposeful for me, as I'm a big believer in the use of white lights in fighting, but I want to be extremely deliberate with it and not have accidental discharges with white light. I've seen that on raids. To my own shame, I did it once with it on raids with a tape switch. And tape switches can kind of wear out, especially if they're getting used a lot in and out of a bag. Can do that. I look at tape switches as kind of a disposable item. What might work really well here would be the new Surefire Turbo Pistol Light, the B model with the clamp, not the sliding thing. This is actually a turbo right here. This won't go on with just the detent where you put it here. There's the other one that has a bolt attachment to it on it. The front sight here and the rear sight interferes with this being attached on. A turbo light with the other might be work quite well here, and also some of the stream lights that attach with a cross bolt, not the slide on like this pistol light. That just won't fit here. Thought it will fit on the side. The side rail on here. You only have two rails, the top and the side rail. The problem with this is, well, the stock still clears it. It makes it like an inch wider inside the bag. And this really is a bag gun. That's where it makes sense. They do make a holster for it, but that added bulk just won't work out. There is a spot to attach a light on this later I'll talk about with the suppressor. So size comparison here. This is, when you compare it to me, a small gun. It's less than 1 foot. Even this Walther PDP Pro SD review coming, it is bigger than that for most handguns. But we start getting, say, chassis handguns. We've got Macaroni here. It's smaller than. Bullpup gun, but classic PDW, personal defense weapon. PS90, it's much smaller than. MP5K, smaller gun than that. Now, we start extending stocks here. We've got about close to the same length. If you add on all the little extra electronics I've got on this, you add more. I thought this is a much thinner gun forward. I just want to show that really quick before I move on to something else. With the stock on this and all the extra electronics I've got compared to how thin this stock is, this is thick compared to the thin on this. Other things to compare it to, back again, Macaroni extended. With it extended, Macaroni's a bit smaller. Thought they make ones with longer stocks than this. PS90, it's a little longer with extended, but not much. But this stock deploys super quick. Again, I can use it as a vertical foregrip and hold it this, but and I'm on the gun. So much smaller than a lot of its competition, much thinner. Weight is the big thing here. Again, this is just a touch over 3 pounds base gun. Add in stock, lights, everything else, like I've got it configured here, it's just a little over 4 pounds. Even when I add the suppressor onto it, like 5.5 pounds. This, with all the stuff I've got onto it, is a 7-pound gun. And even this stripped down to its basics, even if I took the stock off, weighs about as much with everything, including the suppressor on. It's just a much lighter gun. Same with the PS90, the Macaroni. It's close in the running. Both have lights and red dots, but they're fairly close in weight. It is heavier than a handgun, but not by much. This really adds up if you're carrying this around in this bag here, or you could put it in an attached case or computer bag. And if I put the PS90 in it, you've seen my PS90 review where it's a lot heavier, and that's the main thing in the bag, or this MP5K, where I have this in a bag. Also includes body armor. It's a twice as heavy setup as this and a lot more bulk. So whatever bag you're carrying it in, this doesn't have to be the primary thing. You don't pick this up. What's this extra weight in here? That could be your laptop. You could go around your business having a laptop, having an attaché case, or just a bag like this that you're running your other things in here. Maybe you have an iPad in there, and people not necessarily know you're carrying a bag gun, and go about your everyday life with this and it being less of a burden. That's kind of the point of it. It's of a personal defense weapon. Is it something just a little bit better than a pistol, but not as a full-on rifle. AR, AK, whatever name your full-size fighting gun, is a much better tool than this. I can't put them in a bag this small. The only thing that I don't have a good comparison to it that's getting popular these days is the Flex Defense Raider. I haven't had a comparison on that. On paper, they look pretty close, but no first-hand experience to compare to. So my experiences at this point, I've had this 1.5 years and north of 2,000 rounds. All kinds of things from 68 plus P or 90 grain P plus P stuff, takes plus P just fine, up to 150 grain. It's been doing really well except for some suppression issues, and I'll talk about that. The suppressor itself is large. It does quick attach really quick. I'm going to have to do because of, well, you know what, YouTube, if you want to get me, get me. It does quick attach pretty well, and it has this rail on here. Why it's a really large can is a really high volume. It gets quiet, but not quiet as some high volume cans, and it can't be really run wet. Be honest, pistols or with my, say, Omega 9K wet is a little quieter than this. It's also not as quiet as, say, my MCX 300 Blackout with a can. It's still fairly quiet and hearing safe. Thought I would, if I was running it, I have in the bag here with this, where I keep the suppressor. A set of iPro. I do get blowback out of this when I put on the brass catcher. It's a little less. And I also capture some of the port pop. It's just a great little brass catcher. So it does run a little bit quieter. But the problem with this is that rotary bolt can has only a certain speed it can run on, and that's why it needs a high volume suppressor. And even it's hard to kind of see here. There's a little bit of flow through holes in the front of this. So this is a partial flow through can. There was a first version that had more black issues. This is blowback issues. This is the second version. It's also a much larger can. It makes this thing much fatter when you add it onto it. It does balance the gun beautifully, when you put it on. I have to tell you that. It feels really good working it with the can on it. The problem with the can is it causes some malfunction sometimes. And I'll have, what I got here is, I'll just hold them up. Hollow points, I got some HSTs and a flat nose bullet. Overall length, I've got a 147 and a 115 that are pointed. I don't know if you can see here, but they're a touch longer on the pointed bullets. And that overall length of bullet will function perfectly fine in a gun, unsuppressed. Suppressed, I start getting, what happens is I'll have the bolt lock back partway through a magazine. It doesn't happen every time. In fact, we tried to replicate this today and did it once with a take when we were doing in practice, and then 50 rounds we weren't able to replicate it. But I've been able to do it replicate it on the range, have multiple times with multiple rounds, and I've worked with myself with some experienced gunsmiths and other shooters and competitive shooters, some people that even work for some larger companies, and it doesn't seem to be feed issues on this. It's well supported in the feed way. Whatever reason, longer overall length with the suppressor, and whatever combination works inside here occasionally gets bolt open prematurely. That sometimes will happen. You could go a whole mag without it. Sometimes it'll happen 3 or 4 times in a 30-round magazine full of them. It's unpredictable. If I run flat tip ammunition, or just shorter overall length, or jacketed hollow points, mostly HSTs, the fighting load for this is 147 grain HST, I got no problem with it. It runs just flawlessly. So that's the problem with the suppressor, is it's big, a little bit extra blowback, and it induces some malfunctions with some but not all ammo. Oh, one last note on the malfunctions. I've been able to find a few other people online having problems with this on the tech forums on AR15.com under pistol caliber carbines. But a lot of the reviewers, say Grand Thumb, T-Rex Arms, Brass Facts, I think Brass Facts carries this as his regular bag gun and runs it pretty regular as one of his main squeezes, don't record this issue. So I'm not sure what this is or not. I need the contact Burger and Thermite with it, or B&T. But I just kind of solve it by buying a bunch of flat nose short overall ammunition by the case. And my fighting load for anything in 9mm default is 147 grain HSTs or 124 grain HSTs. And both of those work flawlessly on this gun with or without suppressor. So I'm going to show a clip here in a little bit for just 50 yards long range. I've taken out this to long range 4 or 5 times out to 200 yards. So how has this worked? It's a 5.6 MOA gun. That allows me to do headshots at 50 yards easy. Well, if I can do my part from a bench. Offhand, you'll see where I hit that 10-inch plate 4 to 5 times. The misses on that are me, not this. This trigger does not help. 100, 150 yards aren't too much of a problem. 200, it really starts falling apart because about 35 MOA, 70-inch drop at 200. And with this Aimpoint T2, finding a point of reference in that sometimes is a little hard to get that drop on and make it work. When I find that point of reference, I can make hits, but that's not this thing's forte. And you think, well, why ever shoot that things? PDW is an emergency device, just like a handgun is. The emergency may require you to shoot at distance. Just know we need to practice that distance with it and work with that trigger. Okay, so 4 out of 5. That's a 10-inch plate at 50 yards. I can kind of do that with my handgun on my hip, but this is much easier and just more repeatedly. This was still a slow process, but if I go to a full-size silhouette at 50, it's much easier. I can kind of get that with a handgun, but not quite. It's just the stock, even though I got the similar barrel length, gets me a lot better stability for aiming. I have taken this out to 100, 150, 200. 100, no problem. 150, not too bad. If you've seen some of my other videos, I can do that with pistol, including the one on my hip. 200 started to fall apart. A lot of this is, it's 70 minutes or 35 minutes of angle, about 70 inches worth of drop with these subsonics out of this barrel with this height over bore, and finding a reference point to hit. If I find that reference point, I can make hits. And that's with subsonics. If I do supersonics, I'll talk about that later. There could be some issues at distance. It is possible, but that's about pushing about as far as this can go. That's really stretching an emergency thing. You never know what you're going to be doing with your gun. You can't predict the fight. If you could predict the fight, you wouldn't be there. You'd be there with a bunch of your buddies and body armor and much bigger guns. So you don't know what you're going to use it for. But for this one, its contingency is just a little bit better than a handgun. At distance, this is just a little bit better than a handgun. Okay, so just working out the hold there at 200 yards. I'm hitting right about here, holding a touch over where my hand is. That's really stretching it, and you got to know your range. This is again where a laser range finder helps, and it's a little bit more rather than that top hat thing. It's almost a full target form over. But it's a 5.5 inch barrel with subsonic 9mm. So for something that's this concealable and this lightweight, 200 yards isn't bad, and it's better than the handgun on my hip. So night work with this. If you've seen any of my videos or trained with me, I'm really big on night fighting. 2/3 of bad things happen in bad light. If you're not doing low light, no light training, you're not really training the fight. So with this, how it's got it set up, I have to deliberately go over and work this Surefire Mini Scout Light. It gives me 500 lumens of a wider area. It works pretty good out within 50 yards, easy moving and shooting, as well as any white light equipped gun. I've occasionally detached this turbo and attached it to the side here, or on this little bit of pick rail on here. I can push it out to 200 fairly well, make as much good hits as I can during the daylight. That white light at 100 yards, you're starting to have some other issues with things. For no light stuff, I've got this Aimpoint T2 as a purposeful decision, and also with this high mount on it, allows me to passively aim. I can turn this down to night vision settings, have a set of binos behind here, and this gives me enough to passively aim. I have to tilt it slightly, and it works really well. If I have a little bit of, if you've done enough passive aiming, there's a little bit of occasional problems with it, I can attach the Surefire Vampire here or here, and that gives me enough illumination with this to work. It is slower than a laser. Passive aiming just is. There might be somebody else that can dispute that and has the times to do it. For me, that's what it is. And that's kind of a secondary thing. This is mostly the white light setup. Also, with it being a bag gun, that's a secondary thing. I can add a PVS 14 in here and a cryo precision nightcap within this bag and have it work. But I don't have a dedicated setup. I have thought about maybe goring this a little bit, so I can't do that passive, but adding in an IR laser and light here. The new Surefire one that they have for pistols and small carbines can fit here, and T-Rex Arms has got it set up. It would just overall, it would still allow this to fold, but that thinness in the bag would cause problems. So if you really want to run this for a no light gun, with this can, no flash on this at all when you put it on. So really good flash suppressant even under infrared. And I'd probably add an IR laser to it. Passive, you can kind of do that. I know Brass Fax runs an EOTech here. That could work as well, but again, that adds more bulk to what I want to do as a small gun. So I already had a heavy gun that can do everything going on. When I was building this, the philosophy was lightweight as possible. And if I made a compromise towards something, it was towards slick and lightweight on this build setup. So the real question on this is, what does this do better than the gun on my hip? I'm going to show a whole bunch of drills here, and then we'll come back and wrap that up and what role this really fills. So now we're going to start looking at the real question here. What does the TP-9N as a bag gun do over my concealed carry on my hip? So we're going to do that head-to-head comparisons with a number of drills. We're going to start out with the bag, the gun in the bag, and the gun on my hip with a shot timer. So here we go. That was 5 seconds. Pardon me, I need to replace the LCD on that. It's going to go otherwise. So 5.1 seconds. Slow. So we'll see if I can beat that with a pistol on my hip. I hope so. .87. So, well, not blazing fast, about half the time. So with the bag gun, that's where we have an issue. Is it just slower to get than the pistol on your hip? My shot's accuracy. I don't know whether I do AC Jones or whatnot like that, but I have a tight group over the heart with the TP-9, and I got both lungs. Maybe a little bit more C zone than A zone hits with the pistol on that. Distance here 7 yards. And I haven't been doing my drawing practice or working with this for a little bit. I was doing that a couple weeks ago when I was working up for classes. Not excuses, that's where it is, and that's where it's time comparison. It's slower. Now, with the weapon already out, let's try some other drills here. So, what I'm doing here is my 2x2x2 drill, which is 2 targets, 2 rounds, with these taking 2 steps, sub 10 yards. I'm doing it as my 7-yard line here. Yeah, in 2 seconds for a complete par time. It's a good measurement of moving and shooting in close range drill with multiple targets. Not a really competitive drill, but a decent fighting drill. I want to now try it with pistol. I want to make me fair with it. We'll do it from the retention pistol position. So if you've seen some of my other videos, with full-size long guns, I can smoke this sometimes 1.75. What this does today is I'm maybe getting about 10% faster, or just marginally faster with this, and I'm feeling that's more accurate. The stability of that stock again is really a thing. You get a little bouncing that you could work out with your arms on the movement, but it doesn't seem to be. For a pistol, sometimes an advantage on moving things, but it doesn't seem to be as bad here. We'll move on to another drill and show the differences between that again. .405, so pretty close to par time on that. That trigger slows me down a little bit. Let me do this with pistol and I'll explain the drill. Time on that was 5.6 seconds. So what the drill was a 2x2, 4x4. And what this is 4 shots at the body while moving at least 4 steps. Stopping and planting yourself and 4 head shots. Ideally central nervous system right in here. So you've got to slow down and really do precise shots. While the moving shots, it could be a little sloppy because you've got this whole area to do. With a long gun, it's fairly easy. With a pistol from the draw is a real challenge. I did a comparison here with it at the low ready with the pistol just to be even and fair to what's this going on. This was simply faster, 20% a bit over a whole second. What really got me on the speed part was the stability again. Rapid fire headshots on this were good. The heavy weight of the trigger slowed me down. On something with like an AR with a Geisley trigger, I'm smoking this at 3.5. So the trigger's slowing me down, but the stock is speeding it up for stability. The pistol, this is a hard drill to do with the pistol. Even at the retention position from the draw, it's about a 5-second. 5.66 is a little slow for this, but that was the stability, getting that recoil control and getting exact headshots. I think there's one miss from one of my warm-ups in there. The rest are all in the head. So shooting a lot of this is, while we're trying to do a par time, is getting that accuracy. This, even at the 7-yard distance for that rapid fire headshots or whatever small probability shot you have, somebody sticking around a corner or whatever else like that, that's where this thing's going to shine over a pistol. A pistol doesn't have a stock. That's where it works out otherwise, even with the slow kind of cruddy trigger. Okay, close in work with this. This thing has some advantages over handguns or even that MP5K. On handguns, it's the same as retention if I'm doing this or I'm doing my concealed carry gun or any other duty-sized handgun or anything else. But as I step back, I can get that stock and so much more stability. And you think, well, just shooting that close, what do you need in stability? What if I got a really small target and I just got to pop somebody in the face or the eye? Body armor, he's got some sort of cover or something like that. It really works. Compared to an MP5K, this is really easier to do than an MP5K because they got the weight down on the stock and everything. Or an AR, I've got a much longer barrel. The only thing that's similar to this is my PS90 in being that handy this close in. So, this versus a pistol. Where this shines is being just a little bit better than a pistol and something I can carry in a bag. That little bit of stability, this stock, this foregrip, just gives me a little bit faster, a little bit more accurate than the pistol. Is it as better than even this PS90 or this MP5K? Yeah, that might be a touch better guns for some things. Is it better than an AR or AK or say a SCAR? That would be that are fantastic fighting guns. Oh no, those are much better guns than this. But I can carry this elsewhere. And when the day happens, it's an active shooter, civil unrest. Name in your scenario that you're getting for. I can have this with the bag on me and having something a little bit better than the handgun. It's not this replaces the handgun, this supplements the handgun. I'm sharing the same ammunition, they are different magazines. But this personal defense weapon gives me the ability to defend myself. Maybe a small amount of offensive things. And if you're thinking, why do you want to do offensive? If there's an active shooting going on, and I'm nearby and I've got this, I might want to attack into it. I have a feeling, even if he's got body armor, I can make some headshots at reasonable distances. And if I work my cover right, he might not even know I'm there. With my handgun, I'm going to have to get closer and it's going to be harder to do. Would that AK be fantastic? Or that AR that's full size, whatever's back in your gun safe? Yes, that would be a much better tool. But unless it's Mad Max, you and the boys are going around with chaps and mohawks and the vehicles with all the spikes on them, it's probably not the time to carry that out. I can carry this to the scenario and have it with me. Because the gun you have in the fight is the gun you have in the fight. That may sound funny and obvious, but you fight with what you have. I can have this with me, just a little bit more difficult than this, but I can have it with me in a lot more scenarios than I can the full-size gun. And that really wraps up my thoughts on it, what it's worth it. Specifically, on the PDW concept, on the B&T TP-9, okay, I'll be honest here, the trigger sucks, and the suppressor feeds on different things. This is small, lightweight, and it's worth the expense to me. I might want to change it around with a slightly more rank, and maybe I'll add in that IR Surefire one over here for a bigger bag. I don't know. But I can put up with this idiosyncrasies. All guns are compromises, and all guns are niche guns. Once you realize that, say, what compromises am I willing to make to carry that today? And what niche is it feeling? With that in mind, make your decisions for what you want to get for you. Thank you for your time and consideration. And if you want to train with me or rent this gun and see how it is, or all the other stuff here, and get on a range and really see how this works out, or how this fights at night, please contact me at the links below. Thank you for your time and consideration. Good day.